Good morning. Happy Sunday. I'm doing the update today on solar flares because they're getting bigger. And that brings us to a whole different level of skill sets and things to consider, right? So last week we talked in the morning, and by the afternoon, there were 11 solar flares between what I'm going to call a C9 and the M2 class. So if we have a B class and a C class, then the difference between B and C is that a C is 10 times more powerful than the B. An M class is 10 times more powerful than the C, and an X is 10 times more powerful than the M. So what we've had is some M level activity throughout the week. So I'll just run through some dates with you and talk about the fact that something's changing. Our spidey senses are going off. We're like, okay, we're in for it. We're in a new we're we're in a new phase of solar flares. And thank goodness that there's some of us that are watching this, and some that are feeding us. We know what to talk about when we come here, because Pam Youngins is phenomenal. She's an astrologer. She's going to put the on her Facebook page. She's going to put that the solar flare and the solar activity stuff um, on there, and then I'm going to read it and I'm going to translate that into as a human being in relationships, raising children, taking care of yourself. This is what it means for you. So let's just go through this and see what happens. Okay. And I brought some cards. I've been playing with some new cards, so I have some cards for you. 11 solar flares between February 4th and 5th, between the C9 and M2. On February 6th, we had an M5, which changed because it went into a long term. So it was like 2 to 3 hours, right? And then it bumped in with the M9, which was almost an X class flare. And then on February 8th, we had another long term one that hung out at M3.9 or almost M4. And those long-term ones are different because when they come up, they just hold. And you're like, what is that? That's a completely different experience to ride this through, right? And then on February 9th, which would be 2 days ago, so Friday, at 6:14 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, we had an X class in X3. And you sort of saw the social media going like, X class, boom, here we go. It's a big one. So, again, go to Pam Youngins. She's my best resource. She's solid. She's predictable. She's educated. She doesn't exaggerate. She just puts it out there. So when these solar flares happen, they also come with geomagnetic activity. They come with storms. They come with winds. They come with X-ray activity. And sometimes the Schumann resonance goes down. There's a lot of different things, right? And so these are new higher levels of activations. There's a different level of unsettledness. There's this invisible, like someone turned the volume up. So if whether you have a vibrational tool or you have a sound system, when you turn that volume up, you're like, okay, here we go. This is completely different, right? And even the ones that are seasoned, those of us who've been watching it and prepared and guiding, we're getting ourselves rocked a little bit. So when we track them and interpret them, sometimes we first have to calm ourselves down, right? So I would say that the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th was kind of a little bit of a crazy show here. At least in Montana, lots of texts, lots of emails, lots of calls and questions like something's going on. What's going on in the force, right? Okay, so symptoms may be different this week than they have been. What I'm noticing is a loss of appetite. For me, loss of appetite. I've also had a gain in appetite, which is I can't get enough solid, heavy, grounded foods in my body, or I just don't want to eat. And I'm doing really well with some juice, with some liquid, clear stuff. Just don't want to eat. Waking up at these flares have been waking me up. So when they're at 6:15 or they're at 4 o'clock or 4:20 a.m., I'm just wide awake because it feels like my bed, my head and my pillow and my bed are just vibrating, right? So there's an agitation, sort of a pulsing in the body, like this is like I've had too many shots of espresso, which has been something I'm familiar with. So I know that feeling, right? Um, old aches and pains are coming back, or continuing. And they're rotating again, like it could be a tooth, it could be an ear, it could be a shoulder, it could be a knee. You're just like, oh, hello, old friend. Here we go again. Let's experiment with what we can do to make you feel better for the time period, because I have every confidence that you're going to go away as soon as these symptoms are over, right? Now, there is a fear that, oh no, if this is big, what's going to happen when it gets bigger? So there's some fears and anxieties going on, and there's some dizziness and some spinning. Right? What else? What else are you seeing? I noticed the dizziness because, and I'll talk about this in a minute. But let's just like put a little marker in that dizziness, right? Because the basic message is that I want to be able to hand to you is that you're not crazy. Whatever you just got used to or sort of normalized, just notched up. You're not crazy, right? The flares have gotten bigger, and we are experiencing some accompanied symptoms, issues, challenges that go with it, right? Makes sense um, because the pulsations that are around and with these storms are just as intense as the actual, or these flares are just as intense as the actual flares, because the storms and the activity are huge, right? So it's easy to feel rattled. And it's easy to sort of need to seek out solutions. And I'm going to be the first one to say things got really weird this week. And that's why I want to talk about dizziness, because um, I've been able to ground my feet, with, thank goodness I have yoga, because I can really hold all of the parts of my feet on the ground, and I can make sure that I'm fully in my body and I'm breathing. And when these long-term flares happened, what I noticed is that it was kind of jaggy. And what I would say by that is that I would get up and move, or move from one room to another, or have some sort of transition, and the world would sort of spin for a second and then calm down, and I'd go, what was that? So in some ways it feels like a timeline jump. It feels like a seam. I walk through a seam. It feels like something that I haven't put my finger on yet, but it was impactful enough for me to say that was interesting. What was that? Okay. Because I'm curious and I'm an observer and I'm going to notice. And so the terminology that I use when something surprises me is, well, that was new, or that was different. I wonder what that was. What else? If I don't know what this is, how am I going to find out? And then I go and I look up Pam and I find out, oh, this is a long term one, and this is a big long term one, and it's bumping me away around. So I'm looking at things like, how do I adapt? How do I adjust? So one of the things is that this is the High Priestess card on the Thoth deck, and what I like is you can see all the pulsations around her. So she's just standing there, like, here we go, right? The alchemy card of fire and water with integration through Osho is like, how do you hold fire and water, and you hold these energies really, really well, right? And then the one that I think is the most important is this adjustment card, because she's balancing on a sword. She's a Libra version of strength, right? So she's holding balance and she's staying up on this sword, and her focus is completely inward, like, how do I do this? Now, this is interesting because within the Roig deck, it's like I've got something that's impacting my myself, and so the High Priestess, which is the same one as, where did it go? Where did she go? Oh, here she is. High Priestess is that I'm going to take information and I'm going to find out what's going on. Why is it new? I like the similar imagery that came up with the star, which is something's erratic, something's electronic, something's energetically rattling my body, right? And then I found the Ace of Swords in the Roig, which is like, wow, boom, this is what happens when we have a flare. And how do we stabilize and just keep our mental practice balanced? And then this is the Two of Discs, which is, there's going to be some swirling around. How do we keep this balance, right? So these cards give us an image of what's going on energetically and what we can do. And I like that. So To catch you up, if you're not familiar with me or my work, I've been coaching parents and family systems through what happens when something surprising happens within the family system and everybody has to recalibrate and relearn or learn new tools in order to address new diagnosis, addiction issues, school failures, things like that, right? So I've turned that into parental or adult self-knowledge, stability, and shifting out of reaction into response, and energetic leadership when you're dealing with sensitives and empaths. So if this is something that I can offer you at this time and you're interested in doing some coaching, please let me know, because this is something that I'm hungry. I want to find out, what's your stories? What is it that you need? How can we like create some solutions that work for you, right? So moving on, I have 5 tips for you, okay? So the first tip that I'm gonna say is, the first thing is to validate inward. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I felt that. Okay. Now I know what that might be. Okay. So I'm gonna smile and I'm gonna go, that was a solar activity. That was huge. And sort of like use the Star Wars, something is different in the force. So you feel it and you go, okay, yep, I got that. This, I'm tuning in to what is slightly off. I'm noticing it and I'm going inward like, hey, bravo, Denise, you just figured that out. Now let's go find out what that is and what we're going to do about it. So it's like the first thing is validate inward, right? Second thing is, whew, when you notice or you read about it, go inward and settle. Settle in, breathe, right? Put your feet on the ground, slow everything down, stabilize, quiet this mental mind and go, okay, so now that I know what it is, this is similar to what happened last Thursday, or this is similar to what's going on, right? So, what we do is then, because we've read about it and we're going inward, what do I need right now? Do I need water? Do I need to put some minerals in? Do I need to double my magnesium? Do I need to go take a bath? How do I get the electricity out of my body? Do I go sit in nature? What is it that I need to do in order to nurture my body and myself, because something big just happened? Right. So we read about it and we have this self knowledge, number one, or, this validation, number one. And then two is that we begin the process of addressing what we need. Right. Number three, then we make adjustments. And the adjustments need to be physical in time and space, right? So it might mean that you cancel an appointment, or you change your time. You lighten your load, because you need to really look at how much can I actually do when I'm activated and I'm driving. So this is something that's really important, is to realize that when we are affected, we're not stabilized yet. So going into meetings, shoving through, driving a whole bunch of kids home from or basketball practice at this point, right, isn't in your highest interest, because you're in the symptoms, right? So this is a time to be cautious and to be calm and wise, because I'm the first one to tell you that, when a long-term solar flare hits, and it hits mid-morning and it's carrying through, I'm watching people running stoplights. They're agitated. They're freaking out. They can't tell you what. They just have this sense of urgency. And it's not exactly safe and nurturing to be around people who aren't paying attention to what's going on within their energetic field. So just be cautious, right? And be wise. Number 4, begin again. Just like, whew, well, that just settled. So I may be a brand new human being at this point. I may have just had some upgrades or something, and I've just had this flash of insight, right? Come into my body. Boom. So you begin again. Now, let's see, where was I? So I was gonna do this for dinner. What do I want to do now? Right. So we're adaptive and we're conscious, like, whatever I was yesterday may not be the same person I was. And you lead yourself through the hours of the day and the days going like, something's changed, something's new. This is who I am. And this is what I need right now. And so you begin again, like you just were shook, and you're now this brand new human being, right? Because to be present with who you are as you are stabilizing or after you stabilize means that maybe things are really different. So play with it. Like that was Denise yesterday. Who's Denise today, right? And then 5, be compassionate, and be compassionate because others may not know what's going on. They're not tracking it. Or, I've got a coffee clutch that I go hang out with early weekday mornings, and I'll say like, "Oh, there was a huge solar flare," and I just watch the faces go like, "Don't talk to me about flares, Denise. You're just like this woo chick who can't stop talking about them." And I'm like, "Okay." And realizing that whether it's a defensive reaction or a pushing away, it's like they're not feeling it. They don't, it's not disturbing them, or they're in denial. It doesn't matter. I don't have to put a story to it. I don't have to make any assumption about what that is. All I can do is hold compassion, which is I don't have anybody to talk about the solar flares with right now, and that's okay. And I'm not going to push these guys or these people because it's going to be uncomfortable, right? So be compassionate. They are in a different place than you are. We are all on our own different trajectories. And so just hold compassion. And when we hold compassion, we are out of reaction. We're not pointing the finger and saying that somebody else is wrong. We're just saying, I wonder what they're doing. Are they okay? And what this is, I'm having compassion for myself. This is what I'm doing, and I'm okay. So that's what I have for you this week. We'll see what happens from whenever you watch this on Sunday all the way through to next week. And I'll have some updates and some approaches for you. Take care. And thank you so much for tuning in, and like or subscribe. And I'll see you next week. Bye.